What's up? That's what. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? I promised everyone that I would do my Marcel video tonight, and I'm going to drop it. I'm waiting for it to download. I just wanted to see if it was anybody who's still up and want to do a little pregame or whatever. I see that there's 4 people watching. For me, that's more than enough, right? Like I'm just doing this to get my little point across. If it's a handful of folks who touch it and agree, that's just perfectly fine. Hi, sweet brown kisses. Good night. Yeah, it is late. I actually worked on this for a bit, y'all. Hey, Ginger. This Marcel video was not easy. There were so many things that I wanted to really get across, and then I don't want y'all to just look at a blank screen, so I'm adding images and all that, and now I'm waiting forever for it to actually download. So we're gonna watch it together tonight. I hope y'all got 42 minutes before you fall asleep. If not, you can always hit the replay. But good evening, everybody. Just waiting for my Marcel video to finish downloading. And then we're going to drop it and we can watch it together. I'm interested to see what you all think about my perspective and what I really can't wait to see. Hi, Meek Meek. What I really can't wait to ultimately see or do is to start comparing the characters to each other. And I'm trying to figure out, do I need to do the entire cast before I start to do these crossover conversations, or how should that work? Okay, so it looks like my video is done. So let's see if it actually works. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening. Trying to get my Marcel video up and running, y'all. For whatever reason, it doesn't want to download, which is super lame. But just came on here to pregame with y'all. What y'all got going on tonight? Oh, here it is. Oh, okay, it's done. What y'all got going on tonight? Nothing. Okay, boom, here we go.
What's
all right,
up,
so
everybody? It is your girl, Unpopular Opinion.
Let's wait 1 second. Let's get this set up. So before I start with that, I just want to quickly say that y'all saw my melody video. If you haven't, please go and check that out. What I'm trying, you needed a break from MSNBC, child. I'm on a hard break from MSNBC. But anyway, if you all have watched my other videos, I want y'all to know that what I'm trying to do is carve out my own section of YouTube as it relates to LAMH. It's too toxic. It's too dark. Everybody has forgotten that these are television characters. So we want to treat this like literature, like a good old book club. So welcome to my LAMH book club, I guess. But we know that Melody, well, I believe that Melody is the antagonist of the show. If you wonder why I say that, please go and check out my video, Melody the Creator, before and after. It really talks about her villain story. I also did one on Kiki. Kiki, and I really only did it because she did the interview with T, and I think it was Misbehaving was like, go ahead, do your Kiki video. Because you'll get good views. It's popping right now. Like that's how you should really think about doing your content. And so, yeah, I did that. It performed well. But honestly, Kiki doesn't really have a whole lot to give. She's not really a character. But I labeled her as the rebel because she was really just there to kick shit up and start problems. And she did that. Melody is the creator. Everything is about what she's trying to create for herself and for the show. She's not entirely authentic, or at least she doesn't come off that way on camera. And she's very stoic and tries to control the environment. But she is the antagonist because the problems, if you will, or the plot or the tension of the story originates with her all the time. So if you look at any of the issues across the show, it's something that is centered on her. Right. And so if not for Melody, what would the drama be? Right? Like who would be beefing with who really? Because even if we see some of the spats between other cast members, they're always able to get past it. It doesn't last long. They move on. She doesn't move on. So she's definitely the antagonist. I haven't identified the protagonist just yet. And again, just because Melody is the antagonist doesn't mean she's a bad person. We all need the villains of the story. But without further ado, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to go ahead and get into my Marcel character traits. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I am back with another character analysis. As promised, I'm dropping my Marsau Scott character analysis. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with y'all. So I'm going to continue to do my character analysis videos pre-recorded so that I can stay focused, because sometimes the comments start commenting and I lose track. And I have to stay on track for these videos because I have a plan and I want to stick to it. So welcome to my Marsau Scott character analysis. And so for those of you all who are just joining, welcome. Please be sure to check out my Melody, the creator character analysis video, and also my Kiki, Where's the Lie character analysis video. And just as a disclaimer for those of y'all who don't know, okay, I do not know any of these characters, or I don't know these people in real life. I don't know Melody, Marcel, Marsau, any of them. Okay. What I'm doing is analyzing the character traits of their actual characters on a television show. And I know that that's difficult sometimes for us to remember that this is not real. Okay. It is not real life. We see snippets. It is produced. They film, and then producers decide what type of story they want to tell based on the footage that they have. And we've seen time and time again that a lot of that footage gets left on the floor for the sake of a certain type of narrative that the showrunners want to continue to perpetuate. And that's just the truth. So what I'm doing is I am a fan of the show. I watch the show. I have watched it since season 1. I still love the show. I like all the characters, some more than others. But what we're here to do is what any showrunner, author, director wants an audience to do. They want you to read into the characters. They want you to see yourself in them. They want you to analyze them. And the reason why the reason why character types exist is because there are some universal patterns for people. This is kind of some psychology as well. But there's a universal pattern, right? And that's where you get archetypes, right? And in all stories, you see some of the same archetypes kind of show up. You'll see the hero character, right? You see the orphan character. And we know those storylines. But the reason why authors and screenwriters use archetypes, because it helps guide them on their storytelling. It gives the character some dimension, and it makes them into real people that the audience can relate to. You can see yourself in them, right? That's the purpose of having archetypes. I would wish and hope that Carlos King and others related to this particular television show would look at the show in this way, because that would lead them to have more interesting storylines than what they do right now, because right now it's stale and it's boring. And I'll just leave that right there. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Please don't get into the comments talking about psychoanalysis and all. It's not a psychoanalysis. This is the same as if you were to read a book and you were to note the way that the character changes and key events in the text and plot and the climax. And it's called literature. Some of y'all may not read books, or maybe never went to school and took English class beyond maybe, I don't know, 3rd grade. But this is what we do in literature. This is when people have book clubs, right? So take this as like a book club. Okay, let's get into it. All right, wonderful. Let's get into this Marsau Scott. All right, y'all. I'm so excited for this. It actually took me a while to prepare for this because I needed to really go back, right? And again, the difficult thing about this show is that of all the characters that we have on this show, the production team has a focus on maybe two or three, and everyone else only comes into the story as it relates to the two, right? So like Martel and Melody. So that has been the central storyline, whether anyone likes it or not, for the past 8 seasons, right? And so whatever anyone else on the cast has going on, it only makes it to the screen if we can find some sort of connection to the chosen storyline or chosen narrative, which is the Melody narrative and the Martel fight, right? And so we only know of the other characters as it relates to them. I think that that is such a disservice to all of the other cast members and the great stories that they have to tell and the potential that's there. And we saw a lot of that potential in season one. I think seasons 1 and 2 were the golden years of the show. I think we can get back there, but it will have to be very intentional. And we will have to give some of these other characters some shine, and that's partially of what I'm attempting to do here. In the event anybody ever listens to it other than my homies on YouTube, hey y'all. But okay, let's get into Marsau Scott. So the key character traits that I've picked up from Marcel is visionary, charismatic, and focused. Okay, so you know what? I should go back. No, I'm not gonna go back. You all saw the thumbnail, right? It said the magician and the jester, or I may have had the joker, right? So I'm gonna get into what that means, but we're gonna start it off slow. So Marsau Scott is a visionary, he's charismatic, and he's focused. So let's just start from the very, very beginning. So when we were introduced to Marsau Scott, this is when we were, the show was being billed as Black excellence, right? So Marcel was working on Scott, which is, of course, a business that he and Martel started many moons ago, that Letitia bought Martel out of, and that Marcel and Letitia currently own. Scott is a contracting company. I believe in the very beginning, Marcel was doing commercial building because I believe Martel had the license to do residential. And that was part of like that comeback group where they all had their individual roles, right? So Marcel, as we know, is building Scott. We see some conflict with him and his wife around goals. So this is where the visionary piece comes in, right? So we hear or heard Marcel talk a lot about, I think it was a 6-year plan, right? That him and Letitia had a very clear plan for what their roles were and what they were going to do over the next 5, let's just say 5 to 10 years, because I don't remember exactly the number of years, how long their plan was. And it was very specific. Marcel would be out building, making the money, going hard in the paint, doing everything that he possibly can to build a foundation, and just going off of, let's just start there. What is that foundation that he's building? What was the vision that was created? So what we know is that there's a few things. When we meet this couple, or we meet Marcel, he's building a Scott Manor, right? Which is their home, right? But it's a little bit more than that. So the way that they've described it, the way that Marcel has envisioned Scott Manor, is almost like a little town. So he has bought the land, a large piece of land that is undeveloped, all forest, to create basically a compound for his family. We've heard him speak to having restaurants there and homes for other family members there, right? So there's this big vision that he's going to build a compound for his family. That's one thing. Another visionary example of Marcel is the whole concept behind the 20 acres. That was a contention point between all of the comeback group members. Marcel had actually found land in North Huntsville, which is an underdeveloped area, poor area, where he had this vision of building or affordable housing, for families. And they thought that this would be a good idea to do with the comeback group. Melody and Marcel didn't want to do it, or some kind of way the deal fell through. But Marcel had done all the legwork. But then come to find out, Melody and Marcel said that they didn't want to do it, but then turned around and went and bought the land. And so that was a major point of contention between the families in the very beginning. This whole thing about the 20 acres issue. But Marcel had a vision. This is him again, creating and setting this vision. He also bought a mall, like a mini mall area where he was building Black, which is currently Black Cigar Lounge, which is well and thriving. And then there are other retail spaces in that same mall, again, in the same area that had been underdeveloped, and he's bringing development. So when we talk about, like Black neighborhoods being, the lack of investment that we talk about regarding Black neighborhoods, Marcel has been very clear from the very first season that he is laser focused on not only building for his family, but also building up the community. And he found a way to do them both at one time. So definitely a visionary, very charismatic. Like, it's hard not to like Marcel. People didn't like him in the beginning. I think he's really starting to wear folks down a little bit because he's charismatic. He's a jokester. He's able to lighten the mood, even with saying inflammatory things that kind of throw people off. They swear a little bit, right? But he's doing that intentionally. Marcel, he tinkers on being the jester of the group, right? But he is not driven by this kind of laissez-faire, just doing things for a reaction. Let's just have a good time. He's not just motivated by good times. So he doesn't quite fit that jester archetype. But there's some elements there, right? So the charismatic piece can tinker in the area of being a clown or a jokester, right? And we definitely get that from Marcel, although he's doing those things very intentionally and on purpose, and he does get a kick out of these types of things. But that's not his, he's not necessarily motivated by that. It's something that he does, I think, for fun, but his motivation is really focused on making things happen and making his dreams come true. So I think that I've kind of summed that up a bit. So let's get into a little bit more of what that means. So Marcel was the comic relief for this show out the gate. The back and forth with Ms. Wanda was hysterical. Just the comic relief that we needed, considering the overall topic of the show, right? For an ongoing period of time is like it's dark, right? Infidelity and side chicks and babies and, just a lot of trauma. But he has provided this comedic relief. And he's been very, very good at it. His facial expressions, his one-liners. One of the funniest one-liners that I mentioned in one of my other videos is like, you learn a lot about your kids. Like, I didn't know MJ was allergic to peanut butter. Like, he obviously knew his child was allergic to peanut butter, but Marcel just likes to say crazy things. And here's how you can tell that this is just his personality. You can tell by the reactions of the people closest to him. They barely react, right? And they kind of react with the shrug, like, oh my God, you are so annoying, right? Watch how Kimmy reacts to him, how Maurice reacts to him, how Tisha, how Wanda, they're kind of dismissive of him. They don't take Marcel too seriously. And the problem with the audience is that the audience definitely took Marcel seriously. But in the beginning, he was showing much more of his jester side. Or I will say, the showrunners decided that it was beneficial for the show to show Marcel as a jester, right? Of just joking, saying wild things, kind of just, just making jokes, wasting time, being the comedian, being the fool, right? That is the archetype that the creators of the show or the showrunners of the show are setting up for Marcel. The problem with that is that it doesn't quite fit, because we hear the things that are happening in the background, the types of things that Marcel is working on. They don't always attribute it to him. But if you are a keen viewer of the show and you're paying attention, you know that a lot of the things that they are attempting to do, Black Expo, so many examples, and I just gave a few at the beginning of this video of where Marcel has a vision of doing something good for the community and building something while also building for his family, right? And so I think that his motto would be like, I make things happen. Marcel also really truly believes that he is the what is it, the master of his own fate. Marcel is a realist. He is very aware that he's going to get out of things what he puts into them. He knows that he believes that the harder he works, the greater the reward. And you can see him working really, really hard during the first couple of years and not wanting Letitia to work. And again, that plan that they had was that he would work, Letitia would stay home and take care of their children until the children got older, and then she can go out into the workforce. But they had a plan. And you can see consistently Marcel working this plan every season. There's never a setback as far as business is concerned, and as far as, and I'll get more into the family dynamics of it, but as far as that visionary aspect, the setbacks occurred when he tried to involve others in his vision. But when Marcel was just working full speed ahead and not trying to include the comeback group or anyone else on the show, been very successful in. Marcel also likes to enjoy himself. He loves a good time. Of all of the male cast members on the show, and I think that Maurice comes in here a little bit too, but of the male cast members on the show, Marcel is going to have him a good time. We see him probably laugh more than anyone else. We see him, smoke a cigar, have a drink. We see him just very active and engaging with people. He lives his life and it shows through. And it would be so much more interesting to be able to go on that journey with Marcel, right? To see how he actually lives his day-to-day life and the friends that they have. I mean, it's very clear that he and his wife have lots and lots of friends, lots of interactions. We see them hosting, various events and things at their business. Marcel likes to have a good time. So he likes to work hard and play hard, develop a vision, live by it, make his dreams come true. Again, he is and this is why, well, I won't get into his actual archetype just yet. That's at the end, but I'm building up to that. I'm kind of teasing it a little bit, y'all, but I'm gonna get there. Yeah, so let's get into some of the key events. So, unfortunately, the first key event, and just for y'all who haven't listened before, right? In literature, okay, there's usually a point where there's a certain event, right? Something happens in the story that starts to change the character, right? So when you see orphan archetypes, right? Let's think about Bambi. I don't know, Bambi's mom dies in the beginning, right? That changes the trajectory of the character. If you look at heroes, right? Like there's usually a story that led them on the path. Spider-Man, right? He was bit by a spider. That was a key event that changed the trajectory of the character, right? That's what made him into Spider-Man. So when I'm talking about key events for Love and Marriage Huntsville, I'm talking about things that happened in the show that were impactful for that particular character, and that changed the dynamics, and that prompted that character to behave differently, whether in a good way, a bad way, or a neutral way, right? And so one thing that we saw with Marcel as a key event was the viewer reception, right? So viewers thought that he came off as misogynistic, right? And unfortunately, in my opinion, that is because of him being very vocal and articulate about his vision and his goals. And what viewers did not hear were that, for the most part, these were shared goals. So what we were hearing as a tension between he and Letitia was that Letitia was making a decision to change the plan. That was really what that conversation and what that theme was. It was, you're my team, you're changing the plan. I don't agree. But because we had to juxtapose that to what was going on with Melody and Martell, again, the Melody and Martell story is the center storyline for this series. No matter how hard we try to fight against it forevermore, it starts with Melody and Martell. Whether they're fighting or getting a divorce or whatever it is that they're doing, that is the center of the story. So everything else that happens has to be in relationship to that. And that's where we do a large disservice on this show. And so we're looking at what's going on with Melody and Martell, and that's already set in this negative scene, right? To where we now are looking at Marsau as being controlling, or he's a caveman. He's misogynistic. He should let her work and free Letitia. And Melody played into that as well, right? Like, you need to get out of the house. And this is really what would have been a much more elevated conversation, even on the show, would have been the duality of women. Like, it's okay to be a working mom. It is. But if you choose not to be, it doesn't mean that you're missing something, or you're less than, or you're being held hostage. But a lot of this is like third wave feminism. And that's real big on the internet right now. So it makes sense as to why when people see a strong, decisive Black man, the first thing that they read is controlling. Letitia saying that she wants to work or she wants to do any of those things. The actual story there was about the plan, right? And going off the plan. And what we also saw, which I have as a key event in my mind, but that I didn't include in here, was that situation was resolved. The situation between Letitia and Marsau was actually resolved during season 1, when Letitia was able to secure the hotel deal for Marsau and for Scott. That changed Marsau's mind. That won him over. And you can hear him say, I was wrong. So that whole thing was actually resolved in season 1. But here we are in season 8, and he's still trying to shake this perception of being controlling and misogynistic and believing that women believe or belong in the kitchen. And even if Marsau says those types things, even though he says those types of things, that's his jester character trait, the joke character trait kind of coming out. Because again, that's just part of who he is. So here we go with this bullshit, right? So the second key event was the infidelity allegation. So again, Marsau enters the series being a visionary. He's charismatic. You can tell that he has some very clear goals. We hear a little bit about previously he was working in a movie theater, managing the movie theater, and I guess Marcel got him the job. Whatever the case may be, he was able to parlay that opportunity into a better opportunity, into a better opportunity. And that doesn't happen when you don't have very clear goals and plans, right? And so that is definitely a center character trait for Marcel. But the infidelity allegation. So in this top clip where you see Melody in the orange looking at Marsau, that's when she actually said to him, how can you be giving good advice to Martell when you actually out here aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing? And Marsau looked very uncomfortable. And you can see at the bottom, Letitia and Marsau being a united front against the cheating allegations, on and on and on. This was something that the Holtz brought up in retaliation for how they believe that the Scotts addressed their issue. And this has been something that has stuck for 8 seasons. That, is he cheating? Is he not? So of all of the things that I just talked about, as far as Marsau's traits and what he has going on and what he's building, and being a visionary, all of those things are eclipsed by this infidelity allegation. So he's once again pigeonholed as the jokester and a cheater. Why? because they have to find pieces of his story that fit nicely with the Holt story, because again they're centering the story of Melody Martell cheating to no end. They'll be these folks will be 85 years old and will still be listening to woe is me stories about what Martell did. But for whatever reason, this show just can't move on. But it again, it does the other characters a disservice because we can't see their full range, because it wouldn't make sense. So it wouldn't make sense to really lean into how well this couple is doing and what they're building for their families. Like, I think that it would be really nice to hear like how they, like, the blueprint that they have as a Scots. Like, where did you all get the idea to build a compound for your family? Like, what inspired this? And we hear a little bit every now and then, like clips about, how Marcel and Maurice grew up, right? It would have been nice to go back to their hometown, go back to where their mom lives in St. Louis or wherever they're from. I know they're from the Midwest, and learn a bit more about what their upbringing was like that developed them into these go-getting, laser-focused Black men. But unfortunately, all we're going to get is an infidelity allegation, because that matches what's going on with the main couple, and we can't outshine the main couple. So if the main couple is vibrating low, all of the other cast members have to vibrate lower. They can't vibrate higher. And that's a disservice. It really, truly is. So another key event was the solo trip to Africa. Now, a lot of folks, again, they made this about cheating. But what they missed was that leading up to this Africa trip, Marcel was starting to have panic attacks. He was starting to get sick, and the stress of how he had been working and not taking days off, traveling, just honestly working nonstop, was starting to show its wear and tear on Marcel. Go back and watch it if you don't believe me. It's true. Marcel started to realize that he was a mortal, that yes, I have to work hard if I want to enjoy myself. Marcel likes nice things, but the type of person that he is, he has to balance that with doing good, because otherwise he wouldn't feel good about having nice things. So he has to balance that with doing good in the community or for others. That's the only way he feels good about his toys. But he wants his toys. He wants to enjoy himself. He wants to do all those things, like his sports car, all that kind of stuff, that those things are important to him. And probably because he didn't have it growing up as a child, right? But because of how he grew up, right? Because of his upbringing and his foundation, he has to have a balance. And he's a Libra, so that balance piece makes sense, right? But that solo trip to Africa was more about Marcel being able to center himself. And that's what he did. Unfortunately, the showrunners and the producers made that about cheating too. They missed the opportunity to talk about mental health. They missed the opportunity to talk about how important it is to balance things. It came up a little bit, which is why I picked up on it, of course, but it wasn't made a center of the discussion as it could have been, because again, all storylines are eclipsed by Martell cheated on Melody. And so this Africa trip was a key event for Marcel. After he came back from that, we saw a much more balanced Marcel, a calmer Marcel, a more comfortable Marcel. Marcel doesn't appear to work as hard as he used to. He doesn't appear to be so pressed and stressed about his future as he did before. He doesn't speak as, you can tell that he's having more fun. He's enjoying his life more. And I think that happened after that solo trip to Africa. And so let's move into, so what are some additional character traits of Marcel? Because Marcel is the magician, meaning he's going to make some stuff happen. And his motto is, I'm going to make it happen. He has a tendency or a weakness to kind of lean towards or tinker around becoming manipulative. And you might say, well, unpopular opinion, you just said that, it sounds like you're contradicting yourself from earlier. Not really. So this is a negative trait, a weak trait of Marcel is manipulation. He has to be careful with that. He has to be careful not to try to overpower others into doing what he wants them to do. But he does it. He absolutely does it. You can see it. I mean, and he admits to this in his interview with Dustin. He pretty much admits to making people play his game. Right? If you're going to come to him with some foolishness, if you're going to come with the insults, if you're going to come and do all that, like he's going to suck you in and make you play his game. He's going to make you come to his level. He's going to make you rise up to where he is intellectually. And before you know what he's even done, you're too deep into it. Right. And so that's the manipulative piece with Marcel. He isn't necessarily someone you want to spar with because he's witty. He's very witty. Again, Marcel reminds me of the guys in elementary school who would talk about who tell the your mama jokes. He was probably really good at your mama jokes when he was younger. He's analytical and he seeks wisdom. Something else that I noticed about Marcel, he can put the joking aside and he can really start to give very good advice and be very clear and articulate about the things that he's learned. And he tries to impart that wisdom on the show. And we hear it. We are able to hear it from time to time. It would land better if we were able to see more of the positive things that Marcel does. But because we only see him as the doubtful cheater and the manipulator and the jokester, when he starts trying to impart wisdom, it doesn't land the way that it should land. And it probably lands much better in his regular life. Because when I hear him give, feedback to people, when I hear him give advice, just like he did on Dustin Ross's show the other day, like it makes sense. Like he has a lot of wisdom and he really is interested, or his core desire, and this is a trait of the magician, his core desire is understanding the fundamental laws of the universe. And that's where he gets, a lot of the things that drive him, like work hard, play hard. The more I work, the more I'll get out of it. He has these I won't call them morals, but he has these words that he lives by, or I don't know why I'm losing my words right now, but he is guided by some very key belief systems. He has a belief system that drives him, right? And I admire it. And I wish that we could see more of that from the show. I really do. And so let's talk about another defining event, success in business. I mean, the cast, Melody, Marcel, Stormy, I mean, you name it, have all tried to come and drag Marcel through the mud. But in the words of a great poet named Beyonce, the best revenge is your paper, right? And we're seeing the fruits of his labor. And this is probably why he doesn't seem as pressed, why he seems more relaxed. Marcel feels good in his own skin. He doesn't seem as though he has as much to prove. Like he feels like he's gotten to a place and it's okay for him to start to enjoy himself. And I do believe he said that in one of the episodes post Africa, where he said that, you know what, it's okay for me to start enjoying my life. And he has been doing that ever since. And again, this is what I like about Marcel. He's very consistent. He has a goal, he has a vision, and he's going to work nonstop until that vision is actualized. And if you can't admire that, I don't know what you admire, right? But what I see in Marcel is what's lacking in Martel. And once I do all of the character trait videos, I'm going to start relating and comparing and contrasting characters to each other. But this is where there's conflict between Martel and Marcel from time to time. Similarly to how there's conflict between Melody and Letitia from time to time. It's for the same reasons. It's looking in the mirror but seeing your opposite. It's like seeing the 180 version of yourself. But it's what you want to be and what you feel like you should be, right? And so Martel should be where Marcel is. If not for his decision making, if not for his inability to stay focused on a goal and achieve the goal. And Marcel also had a tough upbringing, right? But everyone approaches your foundation impacts you differently. Not everyone who grows up in poverty or with a single parent is going to behave in the exact same way, right? Sometimes it can become a crutch. Others, it's a motivator for them. And we see how Marcel has turned his life circumstances into nothing but opportunities. Marcel sees opportunities, and he capitalizes on opportunities. Martel is kind of still stuck in a very egotistical space, in an emotional space, of why me? How dare you do this to me? Right. And that's what's stunting his growth. And so he has conflict with Marcel because he in his mind, it should be him. Martel gave Marcel the tip on the job at the theater. And we know that what I'm saying is true, because why else would Martel and Melody bring these things up? We wouldn't know anything about the movie theater had Martel not thrown that into Marcel's face, right? But when you look on the screen and you see all the business, and these are just Marcel's businesses, right, that he shares with his wife. This doesn't even have anything to do with what Letitia has going on. But the best revenge is your paper. So that's also a defining event for Marcel that kind of changes his character a bit over time. And so last but not least, y'all, Marcel has a moral ascending character arc. That means that Marcel is learning and he's getting better and better and better. And so what Google says about a moral ascending character, it says, as the name suggests, a moral ascending character arc pushes a hero past their flaws and weaknesses and they become a better person. While the key may sometimes be friendship, it could also be compassion, trust, family, or sacrificing for the greater good. And so we have seen everything that Marcel has had to go through with the attacks on his character, the attacks on his marriage, being in the spotlight. But despite all of those things where others may have broken, aka Martel, and I'm just going to compare him to another man, because there's other examples of that on this cast. He has maintained his ability to move forward in spite of. And so he could have descended, because that's enough to be a villain story. You're going to keep accusing me of cheating? F it. I'm going to go ahead and do it then, right? That could be a decision that someone might make. But Marcel is showing that in the face of all of these negative things, that he can continue to meet his goals. Now, does it mean that he's perfect? Some of y'all may read that into it. You might say, oh, were you just saying that you don't think he cheats? You don't, I bet he did, and all that. And before I log off on this video, I'm gonna state my piece on that. But yes, the archetype for Marcel is a moral ascending character arc. I would not say that he's necessarily the protagonist. I'm still working to identify who the protagonist of this show is. I know that Melody is the antagonist. But, I have an idea of who I may call. You all drop in the comments so you can tell me who you think the protagonist of this series is. But Marcel is the magician. He's the charismatic leader. He's the shaman. He's like a visionary. His motto is, I make things happen. And his focus and his goal is to make all his dreams come true. And I think that it is very encouraging as a Black woman to see a Black man like Marcel move in the way that he has, and to prioritize his family the way that he has, and to really put his sights on building generational wealth. And we hear people say that, but we can actually look and see tangible things that Marcel is doing to build that for his family. And I won't even mention investing in his wife's mother's business. He likes to play hard, but he has to balance that, Libra, balance that with his giving to the community. And that just tells you the type of the heart that Marcel has. All right. So with all that being said, here's my piece on the infidelity. And again, I'm going a little rogue because I try to stick to things that have actually been on the show. And some of this kind of has, but do I believe that Marcel has been unfaithful? I am going to say I do. Hear me out. Marcel and Letitia have been married for almost 17 years. Letitia is 43 years old. So that would have made her 20 what? Right? When she was, or how old? I don't have to do the math. Y'all do the math with me. 43 minus 17. I'm going to have to pull my calculator out, y'all. It's late. It's 43 minus 17. So she was 26, roughly. Marcel has told us that he proposed to Letitia. Actually, no, Letitia's young. She's 43. Marcel has said that he proposed to Letitia after a month of knowing her. They are roughly the same age. I think he's 1 year older than her, so he must be like 44. Probably turning 45 this year. But I think that if you look at the facts, right, of the matter, if you lay that out, known someone for a month, in your 20s, get married, or you propose, do I believe that early on something happened? I absolutely do. I think that there's evidence of that. If you read in between the lines, you listen to Wanda talk, you hear it. I think that the cast is aware of it. I think it's something that as a friendship group, they all know, just like they knew what was going on with the hosts. I think the difference is that Mars, again, visionary and goals. That couple is so laser focused on the end game that they are not going to allow anyone or anything break their focus. They're not going to allow anyone or anything to come in between that and to mess up their focus. They are in the game, and they refused, as a family, they made the decision to refuse to put that on television. And I think that when Melody comes and she talks about it, and you can see how Marcel reacts sometimes, which is why people say, look, he hiding something. The joke is, what y'all probably aren't picking up on, or what you don't get, is that yes, something has happened. And the Holts have been trying to get the Scotts to admit it on camera, and they say no every time. And Melody and Marcel just can't stand it. They have tried everything that they could to get these folks to talk about this stuff on camera, and they just never will. Letitia will say till the end of time that I've never experienced that in my marriage. Marcel will say until the end of time, I've never experienced that in my marriage before. That's never been an issue for us. And guess what? That's their fucking business. They ain't got to tell y'all shit. Melody and Marcel chose to put that shit on TV. This was supposed to be a television show about real estate. And not everybody is comfortable with blowing their lives up for fame. And y'all just gonna have to be cool with that. And I think it's really sad that that's what we expect from Black families on television. It's really sad. But they're not gonna do it, so y'all may as well just quit. I do believe that something happened early in their marriage. I think that it was a really big thing. I think that it was very hurtful to Letitia. I think that it's even possible that early in their marriage, she may have had some things going on. They have been married for 17 years. I would be hard pressed to find someone married for over 10 years that didn't have some sort of issue like that in their marriage. But here's the thing. We're talking about partnership and being a team. When you decide that this is your teammate and y'all gonna stick it out, or y'all got goals, as we've seen with the Scotts, you're not gonna, what they say, what God has brought together, let no man put asunder. They mean that shit. And y'all can keep trying. And to even keep trying, like, you watch your karma. I would be very concerned about if that was my goal. But that's my piece on it. Marcel has a moral ascending character. He's getting better over time. Again, there's some conflict that could continue to be developed as storylines between him and Marcel. We kind of see some of that played out now, but of course it's still under the umbrella of Marcel and Melody. Like, if we can get away from the Melody and Marcel of it all, like, there's so much really good storytelling that can be told. And so I can only hope that happens before, we no longer have this show, but there's some really good bones to the show that I hope that we can salvage. Peace out.